Hi, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening. A little rusty here. I don't have the logo. Let's do that again. Let's get the logo on the screen. How about that? There. Hey, now you know who we are. Laird Wellness. Welcome to Laird Wellness Live. We've not been here for a couple of weeks. We're visiting our daughter, and then things went awry another week, and so it's just crazy. So anyway, we're glad you're here because we wanted to have a special program tonight about health tips your doctor doesn't know. Now, that's not to say your doctor doesn't know anything, and that's not to say that we know everything. Right. The idea is to work together. So that's what we like to do. We like to work together with doctors who are of the MD persuasion, and then we are, of course, the ND persuasion of natural health and that kind of thing, and those who are holistically minded as well. We've learned all kinds of cool stuff from people. I was just on the phone today with somebody who was talking with a holistic friend of theirs, who is a very good friend with Judy Mikovits. Mm-hmm. And so Judy Mikovits, of course, is very involved in CDC and all that kind of stuff, and you probably know her name. And so there you have it. Just these people are making coalitions to sort of gather all information that we can. You know, what are you seeing from a natural side of things for the virus floating around right now? You know, what are we doing medicine-wise? What about this? What about that? So we're trying to gather all kinds of aspects of information for folks to share, and we should be doing that about everything. Right. And so we wanted to share a little bit about what we know that you may not be hearing from your doctor about blood testing, because you know we do a lot of blood testing with Laird Wellness.
Yes.
With our Biologic Blueprint program. Jody deals with that all the time. She health coaches people. Yeah. And I'm sure you have a lot of aha moments with folks, don't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of really good moments, and boy, lots of learning, lots of fun.
Yep, and people are just like, wow, I didn't know that. And to us, it seems like, wow, that seems pretty basic. But, you know, we got to remember that, you know, you have skills, we have skills, and we all just need to share our skills to sort of help each other. Because, you know, the internet may not be around forever. So we need to share each other's skills now and make sure that we are up with as much information as possible. One thing that a lot of people find really surprising is getting real basic. So weight loss. Everybody wants to lose some weight, especially with January. I'm sure if you've gone to a fitness place right now, you're noticing that there's a lot of people still hanging around that had a New Year's resolution, right? Maybe not so much this year with quarantining and all that kind of stuff. But it's still, you know, weight loss is still a very simple thing, but it's something that a lot of people don't understand. For example, here's one health tip that your doctor doesn't know, that to lose weight, you have to become healthy. And you thought, well, wait a minute, I thought I was losing weight to become healthy. Actually, it's the opposite way around. In the same way that, say, a woman who's really leading a very negative lifestyle will not be able to conceive. Or if the man is leading a very negative lifestyle, he will not be able to provide the sperm that will enable his wife to conceive. So you have to be healthy before, for example, the body will support another living being, a baby. Right? Mm-hmm. So, and we've seen that all the time. Once mom and dad to be clean up their diet, clean up their lives, all of a sudden, oh, what about that? How about that? All of a sudden now they can conceive. Right. So this is the same thing with your body. Why does it happen that way? Well, it's very simple. When you have toxins in your body, you have a mechanism by which your body protects your vital organs. So your liver, your heart, your spleen, everything else. Your body will, if there are toxins there, gather those toxins to its fat. So fat is stored in the toxins are stored in the fat. In the fat, in order to keep them away from vital organs, so your vital organs don't get contaminated with the toxins, and it's going to keep it there until you're healthy enough for the body to let it go. Because the body's just sitting there going, I'm not releasing any of this toxin until you're healthy enough. Because if I let it go now, you're not going to do very well. So you have to get healthier. You have to change. That's why when we change our lifestyle, when we start exercising, when we start eating better, you may notice that the weight doesn't come off right away. That's because the body is waiting for it to become healthier by doing the exercise, by changing the diet. And then it goes, okay, the body is now healthy enough for us to release some of this toxin back into the bloodstream, because that's what has to happen. The toxins have to get released back into the bloodstream in order to leave the body. So unless your body is fit enough to burn those toxins and not get overcome by those toxins, it ain't going to happen. Right. So that's why you have to be healthy before weight loss can happen.
Right.
Now, something else interesting regarding that very thing is that for example, the toxins, when the toxins come back into the bloodstream. So let's say you had a bad time with high blood pressure because you had a lot of bad salt, for many, many years. Sometimes what can happen is the effects of that salt are still sitting in the fat. And then when people get healthier and they want to get off their blood pressure meds and all that kind of stuff, all of a sudden their blood pressure will go up a little more.
Right.
Or problems will come back and people will go, and they'll freak out going, this is all backwards. I didn't mean to do this. No. That's called a Herx reaction. That is called a healing crisis. This is your body burning off the old stuff. So as Winston Churchill once said, if you're going through hell, keep going. Don't stop. So you've got to keep going. Push through that. It's a temporary thing. And on the other side is a healthier you. So just know that to expect those things, that whatever it is that you struggle in your past, those things are probably going to come up again, even if you've had, whether it was prescription drugs or even street drugs. Right. A lot of those toxins will be, we've heard of people that, when they started losing, not necessarily losing weight, but just getting healthier, getting their life back on track. Sometimes those hallucinogenic drugs, all of a sudden they're like, whoa, what happened here? And they all of a sudden they get flashbacks and highs out of nowhere. And it's temporary, but that's what's happening.
Well, it reminds me of the time when Van was 4 and Sydney was 8, and we completely changed our lives. We went vegan overnight. What happened with our kids for the next 3 weeks?
Well, we decided to take them off of milk because we decided that
dairy in general. Yeah, actually went raw.
Yeah, dairy was the cause of their asthma, we discovered. So what we did is we took them off of dairy altogether, and what happened? The kids started having diarrhea.
We thought we were killing them. We thought, oh my goodness,
we were scared.
This is the wrong thing to do. Literally, we had anxiety that we were hurting our children by giving them good food and taking away dairy because we were. And
I think we had a friend at the time that said, nope, just keep going. Don't worry about it. And so we thought, okay, we'll give it a couple more days.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna stop this.
We're gonna give them milk again.
Yeah, because this is crazy.
Yeah.
So a couple of days happen. All of a sudden, no more diarrhea. All of a sudden, they needed their inhaler over the next couple of weeks, less and less and less. And before you knew it, I think it was like maybe not even 2 months.
I think it was about 2 or
2 months.
A little bit more, maybe 2.5.
Those inhalers stayed in the closet and started gathering dust.
Yeah.
They didn't need them anymore. And they think, oh, well, kids grew out of it. No, there was an intervention that happened there.
Not simultaneously for years apart from each other and 2 weeks apart from each other.
Yeah.
That's just not a coincidence.
No, exactly. So that's what's going to happen. So if you got to get healthier first before the body can throw that kind of onslaught at you, because you can imagine, right? So the kids are pretty healthy to begin with.
That was a healing crisis.
That was definitely a healing crisis, yes. Now, when that happens, something interesting happens. And we just learned this from Dr. Lewis a little while ago. I didn't realize this. He's always known this. And Jody told me about it, and I didn't realize it. And I'm sure you don't either. Here's what it is. When you start to lose weight, let's go back to that scenario, and you are burning the fat. So in order to burn the fat, what happens? Well, the fat has to be converted to triglycerides. Triglycerides are then delivered to the cell to be burned, because that's where the mitochondria are, right? And that's where the little energy factories are, and they use the sugar for energy. So the cells burn that energy, but the body is a water-based system, and fat is oil. So water and oil don't mix, right? So how the heck do oil-based nutrients, and fat for that matter, get around a water-based system, i.e. your blood system in your body? How can that even happen? Well, it happens through something called soap, right? If you think about soap is that thing that sort of creates a rider, a sort of carrier, if you will, between water and oil. That's what cholesterol is. And that's how you hear Dr. Lewis talk about it if you do our Biologic Blueprint program. He talks about that all the time. He calls cholesterol soap, and he's right on, because that's what it is. It is a carrier. It is a vehicle for fat. So let's go back to our scenario. How does the energy that gets converted from fat to triglycerides, how does it get to the cell? Well, there's two types of cholesterol that you know about. They're not even really cholesterol, but we won't get into that. So there's LDL and HDL, right? You've seen this on your blood test results, and your doctor tells you about it. LDL is the bad one, so to speak. HDL is the good one. So LDL brings things to the cell. LDL is the one that brings the triglycerides to your cell to be burned. HDL is the cholesterol that takes things from your cell and delivers them back to the liver. So I think of it like this. So your cell is like an airport. There's planes coming in low, that's the LDL, and going out high, that's the HDL. Going in low, coming to the cell, coming out high, going to the cell, or from the cell to the liver. So you can imagine that if all of these triglycerides are being released by this fat that's being converted to triglycerides to be burned, how the heck is all that going to get to your cells? It's going to get there through HDL. Does that mean we're going to need more HDL or LDL? Yep. When you lose weight, your body automatically produces more LDL in order to bring the triglycerides to the cell to be burned to get rid of it. So if you happen to do a blood test when you're starting to lose weight and all of a sudden your LDL looks higher than it did the last time you tested, that's why. Your body is automatically creating LDL because you need it in order to burn off the fat.
Yeah.
Interesting. So there's another tip your doctor will not tell you. Don't freak out about high LDL. Speaking of LDL and cholesterol, that's the next thing I want to bring up here, okay? So the numbers that we deal with for cholesterol are probably a lot different than what you're used to dealing with.
And let me tell you, I would say, 98%. That's me just guessing. But it's a really educated guess based on how many labs I look at every day. 98% of people have high beside their cholesterol, their total cholesterol and their LDL.
Well, yeah, and that's silly because high cholesterol, the reference interval, which is basically the where normal people are, I'm going to get into that in a second, is between 100 and 199. They want you to be below 199. Now, let's think about that. What's normal? So how do they get a reference interval? Well, you get a reference by looking at a large percentage of the population, looking at everybody's cholesterol and going, well, these are relatively healthy people. What's their cholesterol like? It's all around below 199. Okay, let's make our marker for healthy cholesterol to be 199. That's where this comes from. So let me ask you this. In the sickest country in the world, the United States of America, are you going to trust a reference interval that is based on a whole bunch of sick people that look healthy and then believe that and try and fit into that model for your health? No, you're trying to get above that. You're trying to be better than that. And that's what we do with Laird Wellness. That's what Dr. Lewis does with his reference intervals. He looks at LabCorp's reference interval of 199 and goes, yeah, that's not good enough for me. So you're probably thinking, oh, yeah, well, he probably wants cholesterol a lot lower than that because lower than that is healthier. No, if we don't have cholesterol to move fat-soluble nutrients around the body, we don't have a healthy brain, we don't have healthy joints, we don't have healthy anything because there's no vehicles. It's like trying to get around a city without taxis, without an Uber. How are you going to do that? So cholesterol actually needs to be higher. Yes, higher. The sweet spot for cholesterol, get this, watch this, is between 200. Notice that's above the high point of what most doctors consider high. It's above 199 is what I'm trying to say. We start at 200. That is your low point. We want you to be between 200 and 260.
Yeah, and so that's what I'm saying. 98% of the labs I see have a flag where their cholesterol is. And I'm not kidding, 98%. And it's funny because now when I see a lab that has under 200, I'm thinking, ooh, they might not be very healthy.
Right. Now when I was a vegan, I had a cholesterol of 161. Dr. Lewis took one look at that one. Ooh, you got stroke risk. And I said, stroke risk? I've got my health insurance and my life insurance companies love these numbers. And he's like, yeah, but they don't know what they're talking about. How are you supposed to get nutrients to your brain, Scott, he said, if there's no carrier? You've got to have a carrier. And that's the most important thing for brain health, is having adequate numbers of cholesterol.
Fat feeds the brain.
That's right. So look at HDL below that. So HDL is quote unquote the good cholesterol.
And I don't mean fish and chips.
No.
Not
You don't
that kind of fat, but the good fat.
Right. Good fats
We
are
need
always
it.
yes.
Yeah.
So LDL you always want above 50, never below 50. Well, that's pretty common. VLDL you want below 18, because if it's too high, well, then we start talking about maybe there's some kind of cancer risk going on. And then LDL, we want to be 100 to 160.
Yeah.
How about that? Bet you've never seen that before, huh? So that is one surprising thing that your doctor doesn't know, is that cholesterol, you need cholesterol, you guys.
And so if your doctor tells you to go on statins, what should you say? No, thank you.
No, thank you. Well, we're not going to tell you what to do. I would say no, thank you. What you do is say thank you very much, take the prescription, go get some other opinions, do your homework. Guys, hopefully by now, after a year and a half of this nonsense, this BS that's going on in the world, we should know that we need to start looking after our own health. We got to start doing our own research. We got to start digging into things ourselves. You do not have to be a doctor to be your own doctor, okay? You can use those folks. Use tests, use opinions, take opinions. Take opinions from everybody who will give you one, and you'll be able to see a common denominator sooner or later, that through your spirit, if you are in connection with the Almighty, He will show you the right way to go. That's the missing piece here, guys, when we're trying to determine our health. What is most health based on? I get a test, I get scared, right? Fear is not of God, is it? We need to be trusting Yehovah. We need to be trusting God. Having that spirit, listening to His spirit as the ultimate, the great physician, that is the primary opinion you should be considering. So listen to the spirit, and if He goes, this is the way to go, and you're looking at every other result going, but that's telling me something opposite, and it's making me scared, and He's going, nope, go this way. I would listen to the great physician if I were you. So that's what we try to do. We try and go after what the great physician tells us, not to try and keep things artificially low like cholesterol and things like this and things like that, but using your common sense. What is common sense? It's listening to the Spirit, really. I mean, if you're in tune with God, your common sense comes from Him. So get in tune with God and you will have that good common sense. So that's why statins don't work, because they're trying to push these numbers artificially low, and it looks good on paper. It might look good for a life insurance application or a health insurance application, but really it's doing nothing. If you do have fat issues, eating all the wrong fats, as Jody was talking about, all that kind of thing, and there is an imbalance there, taking a statin to just lower the numbers and feel better about it is not going to do anything. It doesn't equate. It doesn't fix the problem. Nope. So you've got to, and that's why usually when people go on a healthy diet, all those numbers just come into alignment anyway.
Right.
I mean, that's, again, common sense, right? So another thing that is on blood tests often is something called C-reactive protein. And a lot of people get concerned about this when they're talking to their cardiologist. Usually the reference interval says anything above 3 is getting into heart risk category, if it's elevated for a long time. C-reactive protein is basically a fire truck. It's not a problem itself. It is coming to the rescue to show you that there's something awry. So if that stays elevated for too long, that should be a signal to all doctors to say, let's find out what's causing this, because it's whatever's causing this is the problem, not C-reactive protein itself. So it's something interesting. If on your blood test results, C-reactive protein is elevated, and also something called WBC, white blood cells, are also elevated, it's likely a bacterial infection you have going on.
Yeah.
Now, who puts 2 and 2 together like that? All you're shown is your results, and they go, oh, that one's fine, that one's fine, that one's fine. That means you're fine. No. You got to start taking this one and this one, add them up, and go, oh, this is high, that's high. That means this. So that's what we do with your blood test. We take 1 + 1 = 3, right? So there's a synergistic things happening here. So Dr. Lewis is amazing at this. He's created this algorithm that basically uses several different tests. I think there's like 5 different markers for each one of these categories he has. So
Right.
these 5 markers determine your brain risk. These 5 markers determine your cancer risk, your heart risk, all these different things. It's brilliant.
Where you are on the continuum.
Yes, where you are in the continuum. Not to give you a diagnosis, but to say, you're kind of leaning towards the diabetic world. Let's pull you back. Not to say, you have diabetes, you shall now take drugs. No, it's to say, yeah, you're kind of leaning that way. Let's push you this way. A continuum, like Jody said. It's not a point on a map. It's a sliding scale.
Right.
Right. So that is how we deal with things, and it's a lot. Speaking of fear, it's a lot calmer way to realize things. It's not giving you a diagnosis of something. We can't diagnose or prescribe anyway. So we're going to say, here's your risk factors. And you can kind of take a real objective look at it and go, oh, that's interesting. I'm over here, but I need to be over here. Not to give you a death sentence, as it were, and say, you are in trouble. No, it's to just help pull you back and see where you are and include you in the process. That's the most important thing, because if you're not on board, nothing's going to happen, right?
Right.
Okay, so another thing, elevated neutrophils indicate a bacterial infection. What is a neutrophil?
What is a neutrophil?
So we talked about white blood cells, WBC, right? So there's 5 different types of white blood cells that appear on your blood test. So there's neutrophils, lymphocytes, eosinophils, basophils, and monocytes. So, wow, I actually remembered all 5. Okay, so neutrophils, if neutrophils are elevated, take some notes. If neutrophils are elevated, that means you have a bacterial infection. If lymphocytes are too low, that means you have a viral infection. So when people have COVID, that comes low. And sometimes the neutrophils go high too, because sometimes it can be viral and bacterial,
Right.
strangely enough. Monocytes kind of monitor everything. That's why it's monocyte. And eosinophils, EOS, it's spelled really strange, but it starts with an E. Eosinophils, if those are elevated, that's an indication that you have a parasite. Interesting. And sometimes you can't even feel a parasite, so you'll never know.
Right.
And then basophils, they measure something else as well. So if your neutrophils are elevated, yes, you have a bacterial infection. Lymphocytes have a...
But sometimes
if
you
they're too
don't
low.
even know.
But sometimes you don't even know. Well, that's why you got to test, right?
That's why you test, because if you've had those for a long period of time, that's like a chronic infection that you don't even know of that could be snowballing.
And you and I
health.
both had one of those.
Yep. I
Yep.
actually had parasites about 3 years ago.
Yep. And so 2 years, when we started working with Dr. Lewis 2 years ago, so even before the whole viral world went crazy, went viral, and started talking about ivermectin, Dr. Lewis introduced us to this strange little pill called ivermectin. And people use it for malaria down in Africa and things like this. We're like, oh, that's strange. We actually were prescribed ivermectin for our low-grade parasites before COVID-19 ever came along and anybody ever heard of ivermectin.
It was really easy to get it back then, too.
It was very easy to get it back then. Now, it's, of course, very difficult. But anyway, that's beside the point. But anyway, so neutrophils and lymphocytes, the reason why I'm listing those together is because when you have an ailment going on, like a cold or a sniffle or something like that, it's either bacterial or viral. And a doctor can't really tell just by seeing you in the office. So we had a very smart Indian doctor in Canada. She's from...
I can't remember.
Some little country off the top of India. Anyway, she was brilliant. She'd say, I don't know what you have, but here's what I want you to do. And she would hand you a slip, and it would say, go home and nebulize and do this and do that, and all these, grandma type of ailment or remedies. And then she says, if you still have it in 3 days, then come back. Well, guess what? You never had it in 3 days. You treated yourself at home, and that's what a real doctor should be doing. Dr. Singh was her name. She was awesome. Madhuri Singh. She was great. She delivered both of our kids. Anyway, so now if something has both high neutrophils and low lymphocytes, this is where we measure something very specific called the NLR, the neutrophil to lymphocyte ratio. So you can imagine if the further apart these two are, high lymphocytes, high neutrophils, low lymphocytes, that divide starts telling us there's a bigger problem. And it can be an indication of early cancer diagnosis and things like this. But that's why we pay attention to the NLR, the neutrophil to lymphocyte ratio. We want that to be, just pretty close, not separating like this. So that is another interesting thing. Ask your doctor about the NLR. Better yet, ask us about the NLR. We'll tell you about the NLR. Okay, so, we did have something to show you regarding that NLR. So take a look at this. Yeah, I forgot about the graphic we had here. So neutrophils. So the percentage, as you can see on the right-hand side, now this is a percentage of what? The percentage of your total white blood cells. Neutrophils are supposed to be between 40 and 58%, and lymphocytes are supposed to be between 25 and 45%. So this person, you can see, has two numbers that are not green. That means they're not great when we need to move them into the green. So neutrophils are at 67%. That's too high, as you can see. So they have high neutrophils, so they have something bacterial going on. The lymphocytes are too low. So that means they also have something viral going on. So they got two things going on. So that means that, yes, this person has some kind of chronic infection going on, and we need to address it. Well, there's some very simple supplements that you can get over the counter that address both bacterial and viral at the same time. And guess where it's derived from? Coconuts. Yeah. There's one, a real popular one that we like. We don't carry it in our store or anything, but if you want to look for it online, it's called lauric. You've heard of lauric acid, Lauric, lauric acid in coconuts? That's what it's derived from. And it has a couple of other little things in it as well, but it's all natural, comes in little pellets. You take this tiny little scoop of it, like this big, just throw it down with some water, swallow the little pellets, and you finish a course of that in a container about the size of my cup here. Mm-hmm. In about 40 days, you're good. It's gone. Using coconuts. How about that? And that's why, speaking of coconuts, here's another thing. It wasn't on my list, but I might as well talk to you about it since we're on the subject. Charcoal. That's why charcoal is so valuable. What is charcoal? Charcoal is burnt coconut shells. Husk. Yeah, that's all it is. And so when you take charcoal, sometimes when you're feeling ill, nauseous, and you feel like you're going to throw up, sometimes the fastest way to get rid of it is to swallow a couple of charcoal pills. Right. Because the charcoal gathers toxins to itself and then keeps it to itself and pulls it out of your body. So either you pee it out or you poop it out. And that's the magic of charcoal. It gathers toxins to itself. Remember in the Bible when the Israelites, whenever they had something that was dead, if something dead fell on something metal, in the book of Leviticus, you had to wash the metal and you had to go through certain purification processes in order to declare something clean. And you had to stay away from it for a day and that kind of thing. Well, you look at that in terms of today's science, great reasons for that. So you wash it, keep it away from everybody, let the bacteria die off for about a day, and then until evening, right, until unclean until evening, bring it back into the camp, and now it's clean again. Right. It's God's sanitation. It's the way He developed the world. Like He should know, right? But now, what happened though if something dead fell on your clay pots or your clay, your plates and your dishes? Well, you had to break them. Why? You ever heard of diatomaceous earth or bentonite clay? Yes. Bentonite clay, people eat this clay. It's basically like eating dirt.
That's what I did for my eosinophils.
Yeah, okay, there you go. Yeah. So you ate dirt, essentially. Yeah, you ate clay. Why?
Sparky dirt.
Because it's going to do the same thing as the coconut husks in the charcoal. It's going to draw toxins to itself. Okay, so let's take this to the Israelites' time. Why did they have to wreck their dishes if they were made of clay and something dead fell on it? Because the toxins from the dead thing would be absorbed into the clay.
Because it's porous.
Because it's porous. And be kept inside the clay so as not to hurt the person. That's why they could drink water that was maybe not exactly perfect. They could put it in the clay cup and the toxins would be absorbed into the cup. And then the person could drink the water safely. See how this works? That's why now you go back to the Bible and read this and you'll go, oh, this makes so much sense. That's all it is. It's like a charcoal drawing toxins away from you. Same as the fat does in your body. Remember we talked about that? draws toxins away from your vital organs and stores it safely in the fat until you're healthy enough to burn it off. Okay, so now, you're learning lots? I hope so. This is really cool stuff. You should take some notes, or at least rewatch the video. Okay, so now, we've heard a lot about when people want to do testing with us, we have a few add-on markers. We do our usual set of 55, and then there's another set of 10 that are specifically for to test the blood after someone has either taken the jab or has caught the virus naturally. And often these people are concerned because they say, well, I've heard that this can thicken the blood. And I'm concerned about that because of these spike proteins. And that is true. This is not a myth, guys. This really happens. So we have something called a D-dimer test.
Yeah.
So D-dimer, it determines basically the thickness of your blood, how viscous your blood is or not. So here are two of the markers, D-dimer and your fibrinogen. What is your fibrinogen? When you cut yourself and you notice that there is a scab on the outside of your skin, that is fibrinogen at work. Those are the fibers knitting together. Just think of grandma knitting something together with fiber, right?
Yeah.
Knitting it back together. And so that's what fibrinogen activity says your body is working on repairing something internally. It doesn't have to be a scab on the outside. It can be anywhere, really. And D-dimer is, like we said, a measure of how thick your blood is. Now, if D-dimer and fibrinogen are both elevated in the example we're seeing on the screen here, that means that your blood clotting is normal. Mm-hmm. Your body's just working on something. Now, if D-dimer was up, but fibrinogen was normal,
right,
that would be a clear warning bell or a ding, ding, ding. Oh, there is spike protein activity going on here. That is the hallmark of spike protein activity. If you have higher D-dimer, but a regular fibrinogen, okay? So there again, both elevated, normal. D-dimer elevated, fibrinogen normal, that means there's spike protein activity, and we need to take care of that. In fact, I found a neat tea that I'm just trying here for the first time tonight.
Yes.
It is pine needle tea. You may have heard of this. Pine needle tea, this stuff was from Korea. In fact, most of the ones I found on Amazon were from Korea.
Right.
And it takes care of any kind of spike protein damage. Now, I'm taking it because I've been around a lot of people, and you don't know, with this whole shedding thing with people who have had the vax, and there's all kinds of speculation as to what's going on there. So I just don't know. So I'm trying to be safe. I'm just going to have some spike protein killing tea. And that's what the pine needle tea is. Isn't it ironic how Jehovah does things ironically? Spike proteins are fixed by something spiky.
That's funny.
As pine needles? You think that's what they're made for? Think you knew about this thousands of years ago? Yeah. So interesting stuff. Anyway, another thing you want to know about is, okay, if you have nagging, this is the last one we're going to give you tonight. So pay attention. So if you have nagging acid reflux, a lot of people have acid reflux. A friend of mine in the ministry today, we were shooting some stuff at the ministry today, and he came up to me afterwards, and he says, he showed me his blood test results on his phone. He wanted to show me and ask my opinion about them. And he said, yeah, they tested me for H. pylori. I said, oh yeah, that's right, because you have some bad acid reflux problems. He says, yeah. So we were trying to figure it out, and my doctor said I needed to get an H. pylori test. Good for that doctor. Okay, that's good insight. So H. pylori, what is that? Some people call it a parasite. Really, it's a bacteria. And it's a bacteria that neutralizes your stomach acid. So you can imagine if you have this nagging little bacteria, every time you eat, your stomach is trying to produce acid so it can break down the food so you can absorb the nutrients. And they got this nagging little bacteria in there creating this natural antibiotic, or not antibiotic, natural antacid.
Right.
You're not going to have enough acid to break down the food, and you're always going to have acid reflux because your body keeps pushing in more and more and more acid because the stomach's saying, keep pumping it in, we don't have enough.
Right.
So that's what happens. So he was negative on the H. pylori. And I said, oh, well, that's good news.
Right.
So excuse me, I got my dry throat. And so I said, oh, that's good news. At least you don't have H. pylori. He says, yeah, now my doctor says, now we just have to figure out what's causing it. And I kind of paused and I looked at him. I said, what do you mean we have to figure out what's causing it? And he looks at me and goes, well, what do you mean? We just have to figure it out. No. You've solved the mystery already. If you don't have H. pylori, and you still have acid reflux, there's only two other things it can be. You don't have enough stomach acid naturally in your body, which as we age, we normally, most older folks do have a problem with stomach acid. They don't have enough. Okay, your body just sort of stops producing enough. So you have to take something called betaine HCl, hydrochloric acid, essentially, hydrochloric acid pills. And that basically gives your stomach a little kickstart. And then you can digest the food. So it's either one of two things. It's either that, you don't have enough stomach acid, and the other part of digestion, which happens after the stomach activity, is the enzymes. So enzymes work after that. So, and your body also produces enzymes. So your body produces acid, and then it produces enzymes. And the enzymes are only activated, by the way, if you have enough acid. The acid sort of kicks the enzymes into gear. So you need this two-edged sword in order to properly digest food and absorb nutrients. So I told him, I said, you're either low on acid or you have low enzymes. I said, you might as well try both and see which one it is and see what you can determine.
Yeah.
So there you go. He'd already solved there's no mystery. It's just, if you don't have H. pylori, that's what it is. And H. pylori is actually quite easy to get rid of. There's a couple of supplements to get rid of it. And I heard another remedy today for that, and it was quite interesting as well. And it was just doing some silver, colloidal silver. Yep. Will also get rid of it. Why? Because colloidal silver, one of our favorite brands, is called Silver Biotics. Mm-hmm. Silver takes care of bacteria. Remember the biotics? Bacteria. Life. Okay? And in fact, when there's an ailment that comes our way in our house, what we do is we take a little, like a half a shot glass of colloidal silver. It just looks like water, tastes like water. And then into that, we put several drops of oregano oil. Why? Because oregano oil takes care of viruses. So you've got virus inside a bacterial solution, mix it all together and shoot it, and pretty much you've taken care of both ends of the spectrum. Whatever is bothering you, you can take care of it just like that because you've covered both sides of it. Right. There you go.
Yep.
So that makes sense then, doesn't it? That if H. pylori is what? It's not a parasite, it's a bacterium. It's bacteria. So silver, makes sense. Take something that gets rid of bacteria and it'll get rid of H. pylori. How about that? Okay. All right. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this show tonight. We have certainly enjoyed delivering it to you. Hope you had some fun. Hope you learned some stuff. And of course, if you want to learn more about us, please go over to, give me 1 second here. Hang on. There we go.
Weightlifting.
Okay, weightlifting. No, I just couldn't find the right button. Okay, so you go to our lairdwellness.com/blueprint, and there you can talk to us if you want to learn more about this, get started on a healthy 12-week program, or we have a new 6-week program. Yeah. One person is actually doing that because all they need is a kickstart, and then they'll take it from there. But if you want 12 weeks with us, teaching you everything you need to know, you can do that. We actually have someone who just finished it and is going to do another 3 months with us because they're not finished yet. They want to do some more. Great. That's an option you can do as well. Or if you just want to talk to us, go to info@lairdwellness.com and you can ask any kind of questions about tonight, or you can ask it on the chat on the Facebook. So thank you again for your time and attention, and we hope to see you again next week. We won't be here in 2 weeks because in 2 weeks we're going to be back in Arkansas. So we're going to be visiting our kid and all that good stuff. So, yes, we will probably be back next week, hopefully. And thank you for tuning in tonight, and we will see you next time.
Take care.